Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Schenectady. We are so glad that you are here today, those in our Zoom sanctuary and those gathered here in this humble hall.
Let us take some time now to sit together in some relative stillness. You might place your feet on or towards the floor, with your hands resting in your lap or where they are most comfortable. For some of us, closing our eyes or softening our gaze and looking at the chalice or towards the floor can help us get quiet and centered and more able to listen within. I offer this prayer written by our friend and colleague, the Reverend Audette Fulbright Folson, and it's called Prayer for Hopelessness. The days that come and carry away your spirit, your spark, bow down. Lay your head on the hard earth, and let your brokenness join the death that is stirring there. Life rebels against death, takes the very dust of our bones and reweaves it into glory. You were made for life, and life does not intend to let you go. But rest, you can. Decay and falling away from ourselves are part of that process. If you need to fall apart, then do. For life will hold you in that too. Will teach you how to desiccate and blow away, and then will call you back from the four corners of the earth, and will renew you with the water of the tears of others, who, like you, weep for all that is lost. She will breathe back into you the breath that washes from the mouths of children laughing, from the lion's roar, from the exhalation of trees. You will be reborn into the arms of beloveds, and together we will sing a new song. Our reading comes from a book titled All We Can Save: Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis, edited by Ayanna E. Johnson and Catherine K. Wilkinson. This essay excerpt is called Loving in a Vanishing World and was written by Emily N. Johnston, who is a poet and also one of the co-founders of Seattle 350. I found it so moving that I actually want to read you the whole thing, but will only read an excerpt. It is a bit long, and it gets bleak at times, but stay with me. Stay with one another. Stay with the earth. Emily Johnston writes, even just breathing by the ocean, I feel different. The smell of the sea is home for me, the brush of the waves on the shore, the spark and flutter of sun on the water like innumerable langed butterflies. At a beach in British Columbia's Gulf Islands last year, on my first real vacation in almost 3 years, I felt much of the loosening that I often feel at the coast. But I've known for a long time that humans and other species are in profound trouble, and that the seas are rising. I've known for a long time how much is at risk, and I'd gone to BC to have the time to think and write about those risks and how we can move forward in a way that matters. So sitting there on sand and the countless soft shards left behind by clams and mussels and oysters over decades, I couldn't unknow the fact that the oceans are beginning to die. A single one of the several ocean garbage patches contains nearly 2 trillion pieces of plastic. There are microplastics in sea salt worldwide. Fish populations are collapsing. Whales and dolphins are suffering profoundly from the din of the sonar used by oil companies and the Navy. Seawater is acidifying so fast in the Salish Sea that oysters are struggling to build shells. And perhaps most troubling of all, phytoplankton levels have fallen rapidly since 1950. And phytoplankton is not only the base of the marine food chain, it also produces about half of the world's oxygen. This last fact by itself should be enough to make us address the intersecting crises in the natural world immediately. The truth is that the ocean that looks so beautiful and unchanging is on its way to becoming a vast garbage dump full of plastic and heavy metals where jellyfish thrive and other life plummets. It will not smell the same. Its colors will change. And as ocean ecosystems falter, seabirds, of course, will die too. It's a constant question for me every time I'm entranced by the beauty of this world. What does it mean to love this place? What does it mean to love anyone or anything in a world whose vanishing is accelerating, perhaps beyond our capacity to save the things that we love most? The stakes are unnervingly clear if we look at the Earth's 5 previous extinctions, particularly the end Permian, in which most of life on Earth was wiped out. That extinction was triggered by greenhouse gases from the Siberian traps, which led to temperature rise and climate destabilization. This happened extremely suddenly in geologic terms, but with temperatures and greenhouse gas concentrations that were rising orders of magnitude more slowly than we're causing them to rise now. So it's not just our grandkids, it's not just low-lying or hot and dry places, it's not just humans, it's not just orcas or the Great Barrier Reef or monarch butterflies. It's not even just the oceans upon which so many species, including people, depend. What's at risk now, as best we can tell, is the better part of life itself. Johnston continues, the potential loss of so much life is clarifying because there is only one medicine for any of it, for any of us, and that is the restoration of a thriving natural world, beginning with the near-term end of fossil fuel use. If we make real progress, we can almost certainly tip the balance for some individuals and species, at least for a while. And that's a good thing. To help some people live longer lives with some stability is much better than not to do so, even if it doesn't last for millennia. To save some species is far better than to save none. What could be a more meaningful way to spend our lives? The word sacrament comes from the Latin word for solemn oath, used by early Christians, interestingly, as a translation of the Greek word for mystery. This work is, in the deepest sense, both a solemn oath and a mystery. It is a sacrament. We are walking into great darkness, and the light that guides us must come from within. Would you risk your life for someone you know and you love? Would you work day in and day out to give someone a chance at a decent life? Then you know what to do, the imperative of it, if not yet the details. She says, it feels important to say here that it's not reasonable to expect to feel hopeful, at least not very often. But our gift and our task is far more powerful than sunny feelings because we still have the chance to make the space for hope, to act in such a way that hope might exist for others who come after us. Not everyone can focus on this work, of course. Many people are too full up with the difficulties of our daily lives. They have small children or elderly parents who need care. They work 60 hours just to keep food on the table or commute 3 hours a day because housing near their job is too expensive. But if you can, then the world needs you. And it needs you right now. Because anything that we do this year or next is worth 10 of the same thing 10 years from now. Nothing has ever been more important than holding the world well back from any of the ecological tipping points that we haven't yet crossed, and some are perilously close. This makes us, however unintuitively, the most powerful people who have ever lived. It's easy to see that this is true in ways that have been devastating the earth. Nothing has threatened our ecologies more than the extraction and burning of fossil fuels and the affluent consumer culture that corporations have persuaded us is normal. The flying and driving, the eating of meat, the buying of things that we don't need made of materials that nature has yet to experience breaking down. And all of this made devastatingly easy by the fact that those of us who do most of this live far away from the places where our pollution poisons the air and water, where animals are slaughtered, where plastics are made or discarded. But we have also been granted an astonishingly beautiful gift that has never before been given to humans: the chance to shepherd human and animal life into the coming centuries and millennia, when we know that much of it would otherwise disappear. That's a power that should make us very humble and a privilege that can motivate us profoundly. In a way, our darkness, the knowledge that without our great effort, many or most of the earth's creatures will vanish, is what reveals the light within, the seed of life and possibility that we share with all of earth's life, the one that we can carry forward. For better and for worse, we are the ones at the intersection of knowledge and agency. We are blessed by every river, every mountain, every forest. So many of us feel connected to the earth, find places like the ocean, the Adirondacks, the Pine Bush, the Appalachian Trail, gardens, Osita Lake, Indian Lake, Lake George, Follansbee Pond, or other bodies of water near and far like the Gulf of Mexico, the Grand Canyon, the Painted Desert, Niagara Falls, the backyard here, local parks. So many places where we can feel our bodies ease, our breathing deepen, our stress shifting a bit or maybe even a lot. Our thoughts stop racing. In our reading, Johnson reminds us of the responsibility we have to one another, to other species, and to the earth. And we sang Joyce Poley's lovely anthem that declares that we are blessed by every river, every mountain, every forest, really by the earth, and that we are called to be keepers of the earth. There's a mutuality there, a way to name and honor our interdependence. How many times have you or someone you know exclaimed how much they love a particular place? In fact, let's do that. Let's actually call out or write in the chat on Zoom places out in the world in nature that you love. Where else?
Rocky Mountain. Central Parks.
Where else?
Utah. Missouri River in Montana.
There are so many places to love on this beautiful blue-green spinning ball. Lately, for what feels like centuries, but I'll say many months, over a year now, there has been a lot of terrible news, awful disruption, terrifying threats to our democracy and constitution, to immigrants and transgender folks, and to this precious planet. Many of us have been trying to figure out what to do to stop these dastardly actions, and more of us have simply been overwhelmed and not sure what to do, hoping somebody will do something. Or we're maybe even becoming a little apathetic and think there is nothing we can do. In Johnston's essay that I started sharing earlier, she continues, faced with the certainty of devastating loss, I sometimes struggle to breathe. But the incredibly freeing truth is that life on earth isn't concerned with my sorrows. And those who are already struggling to save their kids' lives or their homes aren't interested in whether I'm grieving or uninspired. They need me to do something. What we can do bears some relationship to how we feel, of course, she says, but it's not dictated by it. I can organize people to go to a hearing to testify for new public transit or against a new pipeline, even if I feel demoralized. And doing so will likely make me feel less demoralized. I can make calls to elected officials, even if I suspect it's not going to matter. And I can organize my community to support carbon-absorbing forestry and agriculture, even if I don't really believe it will be widespread enough to make a difference. Because, she continues, here are two truths. To some of us, much of the time, it feels exceedingly unlikely that humans will survive this. Yet it's a simple fact that if we respond robustly, we can survive this. Despair is an accurate reflection of the peril we face, but it isn't a predictor of the future. It's devastatingly nearsighted. To see beyond what despair sees, to move from the feeling toward the possibility, calls for things we have in abundance: love, imagination, and a willingness to tend the world as best we can without guarantees of success. Any of these can get us started. All of the work is critical in this moment, and we must do it with humility, learning as we go, taking on both the deeply satisfying tasks and the unpleasant or routine ones. We don't have to believe that we're adequate, that those efforts are adequate. We only have to understand that not doing them would mean we decided not to care for this world and ceded the greatest power we've ever had in order to what? Watch television? Do yoga? Make really cool apps? Oof. Right? That's a lot. She's asking us some pretty hard questions. What I want to say at this juncture is that despair for the world grows in me. I feel exhausted by what is happening in our country right now, what is happening to our earth, facilitated by greedy, selfish, apathetic, misguided people abusing their power. I am often overwhelmed by the sheer onslaught of the anti-transgender legislation, rhetoric, and threats that are happening everywhere. I am grieving the many losses of these days: personal, communal, national, global. And I know that many of you are too. As Johnston wrote, despair is an accurate reflection of the peril we face, but it isn't a predictor of the future. Since well before the last election, Lynn and I have been reminding one another and encouraging all of you as well to engage in spiritual practices, activities of intention, attention, and repetition, to buoy our spirits when things are hard, not for a false sense of hope, but to give us courage to remember that there still is beauty, that there is still possibility, that still there is joy. A walk might just be a walk. good for your well-being or chance to catch up with a friend. And a walk might be a spiritual practice when one intends for it to be, when I pay attention to how my body is moving, or I listen for each bird, or I whisper a mantra with each step, and then repeat that practice, either during the walk or repeat the practice of the intentional walking a few times a week or maybe even every day. Reading poetry might just be reading poetry, or it might be a spiritual practice when we sit quietly, receive a mindful breath, and read the poem to experience each word, each turn of phrase, the rhyme scheme and or rhythm of it. And we sit reflecting on the meaning, the feelings the poem brings up in us. Or maybe we choose a line from it and write our own poem. I invite you into this first part of that with me, a spiritual practice of reading or listening to a poem. We sit or stand, present in our bodies. Are you present in your body? And we receive the gift of our next breath with intention and attention and hopefully repetition. These words from Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. This week, as I sat with this poem and the Johnston essay, as the so-called president has somehow revoked or reversed scientifically backed findings that greenhouse gas emissions have a huge impact on climate and our health, that is, on Earth and all of life, I noticed a type of feeling, sort of. Maybe it was anger, well up in me. Well, maybe it was more like despair or dismissive or deflective. It was something, but it was a type of self-protection. He's doing one more stupid thing that will lead to devastation of this beautiful planet we call home. And then I read more of the news of the day. Some of it terrible, some of it mildly encouraging. But I was just an observer. I wasn't really feeling hardly anything at all. I was detached, armored up, as Brene Brown would call it, guarding my heart. I had reached that point again. It is all too much, and I just really can't take it all in. It is too heartbreaking. So my body, my mind, my heart choose to numb instead. But of course, numbing doesn't actually protect me, doesn't protect us. It doesn't draw us closer to love or closer together. Johnston wrote, imagine if even 10% of the country started engaging deeply, even just one day a week. Our possibilities will be entirely different from what they are now, because our existing system, the one that's hurtling us toward disaster, depends entirely upon our disengagement from one another. It depends on our belief that we can't really have an impact on what we are about, that we should all instead simply focus on our own personal fulfillment, a thing that isn't even possible in the absence of deep engagement with the natural world as well as with one another. I love this earth. I love many of the places you named. And I use a capital E because the earth is a proper noun, a name, a planet, a living entity worthy of respect. But the earth doesn't care if I'm numb or crying my eyes out or raging because humans are doing something terrible again. The earth needs me to do something, needs us to do something. So I went to Circuits, our congregation's e-newsletter. The Green Sanctuary team has a petition at their table this week they'd like us all to sign to pass the Packaging and Recycling Act, which I signed just before the service, and I hope that you will consider it too. The Social Justice Action Team gave us all some options for doing something about the so-called SAVE Act. One could click on the link and write a blanket pre-written email, but I wanted to write my own this time. So I went to the websites for our U.S. Senators Schumer and Gillibrand and wrote an email. Please do everything in your power to stop the SAVE Act. Our democracy needs protecting and participation. Refuse this barely disguised hateful legislation that will further disenfranchise voters and negatively impact women and people of color in particular. And as I had not reached the word limit in the field in which I was typing, I added, while you're at it, do everything in your power to abolish ICE. They are wreaking havoc in New York, not just in Minnesota. A neighbor was abducted just this week. He's here with documentation, a work visa, has a family and a home, and he was abducted at the grocery store. This has to stop. And now I was on a roll. Getting over the inertia of overwhelm, getting over the numb feeling. And because of this topic today, I composed yet another email to them. The earth is our home. This knuckle-headed, selfish, greedy president must not be allowed to roll back all of the protections so many of us have worked hard to put in place. Fossil fuels cause greenhouse gases. The scientific community, well, real scientists anyway, agree. Greenhouse gases are horribly contributing to global warming and the destruction of so many species and more. I know every day he creates so many different crises and sows so much chaos, but please do all you can to stop the rollback of the protections of the earth. Please, I beg you. There are already too many devastating losses of beautiful and precious species across the globe. We don't need cheaper cars. We need to stop oil pipelines, oil spills, oil extraction, and keep working towards more electric cars, green energy, public transit, and otherwise practices that people in other countries are already doing. Thank you. It might not have much impact. It might not even get read, but it might. And I would rather be part of that 10% trying to make things better than the grumpy, apathetic character that I was earlier this week. Or that sort of Eeyore feeling of it'll never work. The systems and habits that are hurtling us toward disaster depend entirely on our disengagement from one another. It depends on our belief that we can't really have an impact on what we are about, that we should all instead just simply focus on our own personal fulfillment. Well, I am refusing to let those unethical lug nuts win. Now, to say all that is partly due to frustration. Why do we have to keep doing the same things over and over again? Why do we have to keep trying to protect things, do good things? Why do people want more and more stuff and more money? Why does history have to keep repeating itself? It's not great to call people names. like lug nuts. But it's better than what I might else call them. And I still believe in their inherent worth and dignity. I still believe that somewhere in them, besides their lug nut behavior, somewhere in there is a heart, a mind, a soul that needs to be reminded of what it cares about, of who it really is, and of what we are called to be. Affirming their inherent worth and dignity without affirming their heinous behavior. Johnson, towards the end of her essay, wrote, "We have to love not just this vanishing world, but the many worlds that we can still prevent from vanishing." Those words remind me of one of my favorite readings in the gray hardback hymnal. When I found Unitarian Universalism in 1990, I was already an activist. Then I became a more spiritually grounded one, finding resonance with the teachings of this faith. Principles without a creed requiring a statement of belief, but an expectation that I would do the free and responsible spiritual work to cultivate this human life to be a testament of my beliefs. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do, which is attributed to Edward Everett Hale. Now, for those of you who don't happen to know, our denomination has a section of its website called Worship Web, where one can find all sorts of readings, prayers, meditations, chalice lighting words, and so forth. And this reading is now credited to somebody else, John Angel James. You can go read more about the deep dive that the curators did to try to figure out where this quote really came from and why it is attributed to Reverend Hale. But whether Hale said it or James, the message is still clear. Each one of us can make a difference doing the things we can do, even if we cannot do everything. And if we imagine all of us doing things together, how much more impactful we can be. I may not be able to save every species. We may not be able to save every species. But I can go to the Albany pine bush and be amazed by and support their efforts to protect the environment that helps the little Carner blue butterfly survive and even thrive with wild blue lupin. I may not be able to stop a madman from prioritizing fossil fuel schemes for getting richer, but I can drive our 17-year-old hybrid less often, fly infrequently, purchase carbon offsets, and so on. I might not be able to do much to save the Great Barrier Reef, but I can support the Nature Conservancy's efforts to protect the wild places of the Adirondacks, particularly a pristine area known as Follansbee Pond, which is situated in the indigenous Haudenosaunee and Abenaki homelands. In a Nature Conservancy publication they describe, Follansbee was the site of Ralph Waldo Emerson's Philosopher's Camp in 1858, which popularized a spiritual connection to nature and the wilderness preservation philosophy within a budding conservation movement. Last summer, thanks in large part to the efforts and connections of UUSS member John Rashofsky and a brave small group of UUSSers, we participated in a spiritual pilgrimage to this protected area that is also connected with our Unitarian Universalist history, as Emerson was a Unitarian minister who then turned toward transcendentalism. And some of his writings helped folks of the era consider nature as a sustenance rather than just wilderness or commodity. We hope to do another pilgrimage again this August. You can learn more by speaking with John, if you would just wave, or with one of us. But back in 1836, a little while before, 20 years or so before that trip to Follansbee Pond, in his book length essay called Nature, Emerson contemplates humanity's relationship to nature. This is not new. We've been doing this a long time. A couple of quotes that I want to lift up in the language of his time. The happiest man is he who learns from nature the lesson of worship. In the presence of nature, a wild delight runs through the man in spite of real sorrows. And who looks upon a river in a meditative hour and is not reminded of the flux of all things? Throw a stone into the stream, and the circles that propagate themselves are the beautiful type of all influence. Some mornings I may be too overwhelmed by the magnitude and the rapidity with which things are unraveling to let myself feel the fullness of my grief, my anger, my profound disappointment, and deep, deep longing for humans to do and be better. Some days we might find ourselves giving in to cynicism or apathy. But if we truly love the places we named earlier, either out loud or in our own minds and hearts or in the chat, we cannot give in to those days. We cannot give up. We can, however, take a breath, acknowledge whatever we are or are not feeling, and then take some action, however small, to make our love for the wildest places a testament of our faith. We cannot do everything, but let us not refuse to do the things we can do, to see beyond what despair sees, to move from the feeling toward the possibility calls for things we have in abundance, love, imagination, and a willingness to simply tend the world as best we can without guarantee of success. What is our solemn oath to finding love in the wildest places? The sacrament, the testament, religious arenas or in parliament, United Nations and world governments could turn our lives right now towards love, towards tending the world, bending the arc, a flag of justice unfurled. We are called to use our moral imagination, to rise with condemnation against the destruction of our nation and the obliteration of the oceans and rivers, the degradation of the rainforests, of the air and the soil, for us to toil together and endeavor to address whether we are willing to go where the wild things are and do all we can. For better and for worse, we are the ones at the intersection of knowledge and agency. We don't have time for complacency, and when despair for the world grows in me or in thee, let us breathe and weave words and wisdom into the recognition of our needed volition to honor our interdependence, one world with liberty and justice and peace for all beings everywhere. May we find our love and our courage to use our power to make it so. Amen. And blessed be.